friend. Welcome back to the Real Personal Branding Podcast. I'm so excited for today. I am Lauren V. Davis, and I'm a personal branding coach. I'm a small business consultant. I'm a music lover. I'm a dog lover. And I am your enthusiastic supporter in creating a business of your dreams. Today I'm talking with Kat Boogaard, who has been a full-time freelance writer for more than 10 years. Kat focuses on writing long-form content for software clients in the world of workspace, and she also provides thoughtful advice and practical resources for fellow freelancers through her newsletter, her social media, and her freelance shop. You probably have seen her on social media before. Look her up. You're gonna look at it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I've been seeing her posts for years. In this episode, Kat opens up about her journey from working in marketing to building a thriving freelance business that supports her lifestyle and creativity. You're going to learn how she built her client base from scratch. You're going to learn about how she's set rates, how she manages workflow, how she sets boundaries, and how she has turned her freelancing skills into a very sustainable business model that grows year over year. So if you are a freelancer yourself, or maybe you're just kind of curious about how to turn your skills into a consistent income, you are going to love this conversation because it is just absolutely packed with real, honest insights about money, about mindset, about managing, ups and downs of self-employment. And I am just so thankful that Kat agreed to join me on this podcast today. You're going to love this. Okay, ready? Let's go for it. Welcome to the Real Personal Branding Podcast, Kat Boogaard. I am so happy that you're here. I've been following you forever, and I'm so excited that you are here on the podcast and ready to share with all of my friends too.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions about just your background because I want anyone who doesn't know you already to kind of get to know you a little bit better and learn about your story through entrepreneurship, because it is a really, really cool story. And I know you kind of left your full-time marketing job. This is many, many years ago now. You left your full-time job to pursue freelancing full-time. I would love to know a little bit more about that story. And also, were there some key signs that kind of told you it was time to make that leap at the time that you did? What steps you took to make the transition as smooth as possible? Give us a little bit of your background story.
Yeah, of course. Happy to. So yeah, I worked a full-time job in marketing out of college. I guess before that, my background was always like musical theater. I was one of those kids that thought she was going to be on Broadway. Got into a college program for that, quickly realized like there's so many talented people in the world. This is not going to happen for me. And then it was like that full identity crisis of like, what do I do with my life? So kind of got a degree in communication and a minor in journalism because I'd always been told I was good at writing, seemed like a marketable skill. Just kind of did that. Like careers are funny to me because it's like I'm here now with just like that quick kind of decision made on a whim. So yeah, then got a full-time job in marketing out of college and like pretty quickly realized that like a typical full-time in-office gig was not for me. Not because like I lack work ethic or anything like that. Obviously, that needs to be very strong when you're an entrepreneur, but my mom was dealing with a lot of health issues at the time. So I was like having to take some of my limited 10 vacation days to like take her to specialist appointments. And like, it just seemed so bizarre to me to be a grown adult, like asking fellow grown adults for permission to like go to the dentist.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to do this for the next 40 years. Like, forget it. That's not for me. So pretty quickly got the itch to like do something on my own and knew I had always been good at writing. So had kind of loosely heard of freelance writing as a career and was like, oh, I'll do that. And just kind of quit my job with like very limited savings and no backup plan and no earthly clue about what it actually meant to make a living in a career as a writer. And that was 10 and a half years ago. And here I still am. So I guess it went well, but it was a bumpy road.
But I think the coolest thing about you is that while it may have been a bumpy road, now you've spent the last 10 years normalizing that bumpy road for freelancers, giving them the space to like ease their way maybe even not ease their way through it, but like learn about how
Mhm.
to be a better freelancer along the way and how to build their business. So you didn't just, go through it, but you actually like are taking people along the ride and making light of it and making humor out of it at the same time.
Mhm.
You've built a pretty recognizable personal brand in the freelancing space and the entrepreneurship space online. What role for you has social media played in growing your business? And do you think that it is essential for people or freelancers or entrepreneurs to use it as well to better attract clients? Tell me a little bit more about your social media and how it's helped your business.
Oh yeah, I have so many thoughts. Like it's first of all, I get a lot of compliments on my personal brand, which like I take very kindly and I take to heart. But it's also something that just kind of like happened by accident. Like I just people always ask me about like my strategy or my framework or whatever, and I just like am who I am, and that,
Yeah.
comes through online as well. But it's hard for me to talk about how much of an impact social media has had on my freelance business because I've kind of crafted an online persona and a personal brand that is very freelancer facing. So like I'm talking to the freelancers, I'm not talking to prospective clients. So I wouldn't say that like social media has been like a huge revenue generator or like source of new leads and business for me. Of course, that happens. But I think the larger purpose it served for me has been that sense of like community and connection, which I think are some of the things that are a big struggle for freelancers because like I'm here in my house alone with my dog talking to no one all day. So like having a network of fellow freelancers who I can like be really candid about the challenges with and who can be, really candid in return has definitely been the more invaluable piece. Now, like I said, I do get some business from it. Particularly like LinkedIn is where I'm doing, more of my warm outreach or connecting with content managers or whatever it is. But it's hard for me to actually like draw a direct line between social media activities and my like business. And also, I told you I have a lot of thoughts, and here I go. I've like majorly kind of curtailed or limited my social media posting recently, and I'm pretty much only active on LinkedIn. Used to be really active on Twitter, now X or Instagram, and had a Facebook group and like did all the things. And I think social media burnout is just so real. And I started to really feel that way and just kind of like one at a time outlets or, accounts have kind of been dropping off to the point where LinkedIn is really the only space where I'm active now.
That's really interesting. And I like your perspective on this is that you did set out to just be who you are. And it wasn't a huge strategy. It wasn't like,
Mhm.
hey, ChatGPT, give me a strategy for XYZ and like tell me exactly how many times to post a day. I really appreciate that take on it because I think so many people get so caught up in like what the best way to do something is that they never even start. And they
Mhm.
don't just think about it as building community and building relationships and building friends. And I really appreciate that. I'm sure that there is some like level of strategy in there somewhere as far as like how you reach out to people, how you talk to people. But I appreciate that it doesn't have to be like so rigid and so like if you don't do this equation, then the XYZ won't happen for you. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
know that you kind of left out of corporate, like what you shared, where you said you had minimal backup plan, you had like
Mhm.
minimal savings. Do you? I've also seen, and maybe tell me if you've seen this as well. I've seen a lot of people lately going back into corporate or leaving entrepreneurship, moving back into it. Do you feel like there is something that made you, one, take that leap at the time into saying, like, I think, I mean, you kind of explained it, but like, is there some fork in the road moment that was like, okay, I'm ready now? And
Mhm.
then two, do you think that there is a right or wrong time for people to say, like, maybe this isn't for me, I'm going to go back to corporate? It's kind of
Mhm.
a double-sided question. I know that I'm made to be an entrepreneur. I don't know that I could do something else at this point. But I also know that some people don't have that tie isn't necessarily there. So like what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, so like the fork in the road moment for me, like my hand was kind of forced, so to speak, because like I
Sure.
won't get into the logistics, but my job was changing. They were kind of doing some restructuring within the company I was working for, and they were sort of building a new position around me. And I had been having those thoughts for a long time of like, I don't think this is for me long term, kind of looking for a way out to do my own thing. And when they had like brought that to me with just so much like genuine enthusiasm, like they were doing me such a big, not a favor, but like that, I was kind of central to this new plan. That was when I was kind of like, oh, I need to say something before,
Yeah.
like, because they're bringing this to the board, they're getting approval. Like, I need to speak up. So, like, that was when my hand was kind of forced that, like, I can't just keep thinking about this forever. Like, I don't want them to just kind of move forward with the assumption that they're building all of this around me when I'm like looking for a way out the door. So that was kind of the real fork in the road moment. But like I said, there were so many little moments leading up to that just kind of add to that overall feeling where you're like, this isn't for me, this isn't for me, this isn't for me. But that was really the moment when I was like, I gotta let them know that I wanna, hit the road. And as far as like people going back to corporate from entrepreneurship, like I can definitely see the temptation in a lot of ways. Like being an entrepreneur is hard. You're so solely responsible for everything. You don't have, paid time off. You don't have employer match on retirement savings. You don't have health care. You don't have a team rallying around you. Like there are so many downsides that I don't think get talked about as much because they're not as sexy as like the entrepreneurial dream, which I do think exists too.
So true.
But, like I think it's so hard to just kind of quantify or define like this is when it's not right for you because like I think that's going to look so different for everybody. I think like one of the best things you can learn to do in your career, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, is to trust your gut and like you will know, like I think relatively quickly if it is not, the right fit for you. I just think it's trusting yourself and listening to that intuition where things get lost because I think we tell ourselves a lot of stories about who we are or what we like or what our career should look like. And it gets increasingly difficult to separate our real preferences, values, and desires from what we like to tell ourselves those things are.
Such a good answer. I agree about following your intuition and also examining the stories you're telling yourself about if you're cut out for something or not. That's so important there. For clarification, and for anyone who's listening who does not know Kat yet, can you tell us a little bit about how people work with you? Like you mentioned, you had a Facebook community at one point. You mentioned that you do warm outreach on LinkedIn. Give us a little bit of kind of an overall view, a bird's eye view of how you work with people, how you work with companies,
Mhm.
and give us a little bit more context to what you do right now. So that way, when I start asking you some more tactical questions, uh, people really understand where that answer is coming from because I think you've given us so much good information so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So the bulk of my like work, my income, all of that is freelance writing services. So I am partnering with companies, with clients that, hire me to produce content. Up until this point, that's very largely been like search engine optimized blog content, primarily for like software clients in the world of work. So that's employer facing and employee facing. So I write for everything from like employee engagement platforms to job boards. I've worked with like Glassdoor or Workable or Atlassian, like just a lot of software clients, whether it's a productivity and collaboration tool or, human resources platform or whatever it is. That's kind of my sweet spot. And like I said, that makes up the vast majority of where I'm spending my time and where I'm making my money. But I have over the years kind of built up kind of a second avenue of my business where I'm talking to fellow freelancers. So, providing downloadable resources, or I even have like some merch, like some, sweatshirts and coffee mugs and things that kind of pick up on that more like humorous, relatable fellow freelancer side. It's not something I've invested a ton of time and energy into, so it has not been a huge like income generator for me, just definitely something that I more enjoy and have tried a lot of different things in that area. It makes up the bulk of my social presence, but I did have like a newsletter that is on hiatus. Don't know if I'll bring it back. I did the Facebook community for a while. Like I said, the different resources. I've always kind of tried a few different things there as well.
I think what you're talking about is so interesting about like doing, pushing hard on certain areas and then also scaling, knowing when to scale them back and
Hmm.
knowing when like this is leading to a social media burnout that I don't really like, or this is leading to like, this is just not aligned with me or who I am or what I'm
Hmm.
doing anymore. I think it's so important to recognize those things because it's easy to just kind of get pulled into this idea that we have to do it all a certain way. And so thank you for
Hmm.
sharing that. How your story about like how you work with these software companies and you mentioned a few of them and I know, just from researching that there's like some really big names in there. How did you land your first ever high profile client or big client as a freelancer? Was there like a specific outreach you did? How did that opportunity happen for you? Or what kind of work did you do to get that opportunity? I think that a lot of people are kind of in this new phase of seeing like, can I make this entrepreneurship thing work for me? How can I make my personal brand do some work for me here? Tell us a little
Hmm.
bit more about your first high profile client.
Yeah, so that's all like always an interesting story, and it's hard for me to like think back on like who would I actually consider that to be.
Yeah.
But like I usually and like it's a hard story to tell because I'm like a big proponent of like effort and strategy and all of these things, but there is so much of entrepreneurship that is just like luck and like being in the right place at the right time. And like people never really want to talk about that aspect because it's not something that I can teach you to replicate. I'm not going to sell you a course on how to be lucky. But so I kind of consider like my like big break, so to speak, is I landed a part-time staff writer, like remote position with a site called The Muse, which at the time was like a
Yeah.
really, really big like career site. And it's so funny how I just kind of came upon that opportunity because I was actually on a like discovery call with a potential other new client. And they told me, like, well, we just really want our content to be like the Muse, like, the Muse, right? And as one does on discovery calls, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely love the Muse. So great. Had no earthly idea what it was. So like after that call, went and Googled like what is the Muse? And I was like, oh, this is a really cool career site. This is the, kind of area that I want to write more in. And so I like looked at their job openings and just by sheer chance, they were hiring a remote part-time staff writer. I applied, sent a couple of clips because I had been writing some career stories for the Every Girl. So I had a couple of career related samples, sent them, got an interview, and then was at that job for like 3.5 years. And it was through that
Wow.
job that I got to work on a lot of big projects. A ton of my work got syndicated by like really big publications. And so then I had like this portfolio of stuff that was published in, Fast Company or whatever. And that made me so much more legitimate and made it so much easier to go to other prospective clients and say, I write for the Muse. I've been published by Forbes and Fast Company and blah, blah, blah. And like it was just a snowball after that. But
Yeah.
it was luck, like more than anything. It's just somebody mentioned it. I looked, there was an opportunity, I got it. And obviously some like work and skill in there too, because I needed to do a good job on my, application and interviews and things like that. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those like weird universe moments.
Okay, but can I also reflect back to that it wasn't just luck because you had to actually get off that call and
Hmm.
then choose to look up the Muse, then choose to look into their job board, then choose
Yeah.
to apply and put the actual work in, like what you said, do a good job, go through that process, get hired. Like all of that stuff is the work. That is
Yeah,
the work.
that's true. I shouldn't sell myself short because I did have to take the initiative. I could have just lied on the call and then not done
And not
anything with
done
that
anything.
information, but I didn't.
And that's what I talk to people about all the time is that there really truly are opportunities everywhere. There are
Hmm.
opportunities all around us. It's just, are we looking for opportunities that fit into a certain mold? Or are we looking at opportunities as like like every connection, every conversation we have, every time you talk to somebody new, could they be an open door to something that you could have never even expected or imagined in your life? So
Hmm.
I think that's a wonderful story. Let's talk about some of the more tactical things because that is the second part of my episodes is where, okay, we have the context of who you are. We know you know your stuff. You've been doing this. You didn't learn how to write on YouTube last night.
Mm-mm. No.
And and now, like, let's get into some of the stuff that you do know. And so that way, people, when they listen to this podcast episode, they can walk away from this episode and say, like, I can take the next best step for myself. I can take a few small actions and do something for myself. So I know that a lot of freelancers struggle with choosing some kind of niche or niche, however people say this. How important do you think it is to find a very specific category that you talk within or that you talk to? I know you've built a strong reputation writing about productivity and collaboration and in the world of
Mhm.
workplace and freelancing itself. What advice would you give to freelancers that are trying to stand out in a crowded market? Would it
Mhm.
be to niche down or would it be something else?
Yeah, the niche thing is always an interesting topic of conversation. Personally, I'm like a big proponent of a niche because I think it allows you to build like name recognition. It allows you to, focus your efforts. It allows you to build a really targeted network. Like there's just so many pros, but I always hesitate to like sing its praises too strongly, especially to like new freelancers because I think you are better off instead of finding your niche, kind of letting your niche find
Find
you.
you.
Yeah. And so I think it's smart when you start freelancing to just try a lot of different things. That gives you the opportunity to understand what you enjoy doing versus what drains you, or where your strengths really shine versus where you're really struggling. And like, again, that might be a story you're telling yourself about like, I should focus on XYZ because I know I'll be good at that. But like, there could be something else that's just a way better or more natural kind of aligned fit for you. So like, I'm a big proponent of a niche. I think it has a lot of benefits for your freelance career. I would not rush into just like throwing a dart at a board and picking something so that you can implement that best practice of having a niche. Like I wrote press releases, I did social media management, I entered business cards into a spreadsheet. Like I did a little bit of I wrote resumes. I did a little bit of everything. And through writing about everything from like fitness trackers to like women's health, realized like, oh, I like talking about work and there seems to be a lot of opportunity there. So I think it's important. It is not like it is not the best first step you can take to become a freelancer.
Oh my gosh, like you read my mind because the next question I was going to ask you, based on what you just said, was if there was like three first steps that you think you would tell someone getting into freelancing right now, what would be like the three main things in their first year that they should kind of establish for themselves?
Oh, that's a hard question, especially since like the I would be remiss not to mention like the market is just so weird right now.
It
I think
is so weird.
people are feeling that in every industry. I think in freelancing and in freelance writing in particular, where like, Chat GPT has literally entered the chat. Like it's just a weird time.
Yes.
I think one of my biggest regrets when I started my freelance career was I was not telling anybody what I was doing. This was at a time when it was still really kind of taboo to like quit your job and like not have a quote unquote real job. So
Uh-huh.
I like think I internalized some deep feelings of almost like shame and embarrassment and was like, I don't want to tell people what I'm trying to do because then like they don't have to know when it doesn't work. So
Uh,
I really kept my lips zipped. Whereas I think I missed out on a lot of really good introductions and opportunities, as opposed to if I would have just said, like, hey, I'm trying to start my own business doing, some content writing. Like, do you know anybody, tapping my kind of existing network for opportunities? But instead, I just like did not want to say it loud and proud in case I fell flat on my face. And so I think that's one of the best things you can do is just like shamelessly promote like what you're doing, like take ownership over what you're trying to pursue and share that with people. And then I guess number two is like lean into your existing network. I think so many people get into freelancing and they set their sights big, which is great, like dream big, but you're probably not going to start big in the same way that you're not going to like graduate college and join the C-suite. There are steps leading up to these things. So like tap your network of existing contacts. You have people who are really eager to support you. And that's a way easier starting point than reaching out to some content manager at some enormous company where you're just super intimidated and your imposter syndrome kicks into gear. Like start small. It's a good way to kind of get your feet wet. And then I mean, the sooner you can start getting some samples as a freelance writer in particular, that's going to be a huge help, when you reach out to people because they're probably not going to want your Google Doc or your college paper. They want to see some published clips.
Yeah, those are really great tips. And I think, especially that last one of getting some sample work out there and getting some social proof in some way, shape, or form that you are doing the thing and you know what you're doing and you will stand out above the rest. I love that. Do you have any advice? I know that one of the questions I get asked a lot is one, how to price things. Two, how to go from one-off jobs to recurring income or retainer-based work. Do you have anything that you could share based on working with so many freelancers, doing this yourself and bringing along all of us for the journey as well?
Yeah, pricing is like always a hot topic. I tend to do project-based pricing mainly because I realized pretty quickly on like I did not want my income directly tied to my time. Especially now that I'm 10 and a half years in, I'm like super efficient. If I'm charging an hourly rate, I'm getting paid kind of peanuts for a blog post at this point because I can write it relatively quickly. So I do project-based rates. With that in mind, I do kind of have like an hourly or even a per word rate that I'm like keeping in my mind. I'm not sharing it with clients, but it's a good kind of benchmark to have in mind if I need to price a project that's kind of weird. I can kind of return to that and make sure that my rates are somewhat consistent across the board, especially when like the scope of work can vary kind of widely. My like best tip for turning one-off projects into like recurring work is to ask for it. It's such a simple tip, but like I think people tend to maybe turn something in and then like hope for the best. I would not be ashamed to turn something in, ask about next assignments, and at that same time, like make a suggestion. Maybe as you were researching that post, you uncovered this other kind of fact or related topic that could be really interesting. Like that's something you can pitch to them after you turn that in and say, here's this assignment. I really loved working on it. As I was researching this, I came across topic XYZ and think it could be really interesting to your audience. Do you want me to work on that next? And something as simple as that kind of keeps the momentum going, shows that you took initiative. You're not just waiting for them to, assign you things. A lot of my recurring work I have gotten just from flat out telling clients, like, I really enjoyed working on this. Is there opportunity for us to continue working together in a more, predictable capacity, and have usually gotten really positive response to that. So like you don't get what you don't ask for. And I think it's really easy for us to just kind of like cross our fingers and wish things would play out a certain way without, summoning our courage and saying, this is what I want. Do you want this too? Which turns out it
Most
works.
of the time they do. Yeah, no, it reminds me of like for 16 years I owned a local record store, and I learned so much. I no longer own that with my former spouse, but I learned very quickly that if you could get somebody to walk in the door one time, you could get them back. But if you never got them in the front door the first time, the likelihood of them coming in or just stopping in on a whim, it kind of gradually decreases over time. So I was always looking for opportunities to like bring someone in the door and make them feel comfortable the first time. And it's a very similar concept to once you've worked with them, once you guys have already done that initial hard step of like learning how to work with each other, learning how each other communicates, like doing all those little nuanced details. Once you've done that work, it becomes easier from there. So you might as well just say, is there more capacity to work together, especially if you like the client and you
Mhm.
really you guys really vibe and you understand each other and you're like, this is the type of person I want to work with. This is the type of work I want to do. That's a great, great tip.
Yeah. And I mean, clients, like it's easier for them too. Like you're a known quantity. It's hard for them to go out and find more freelancers and vet them and train them on their voice and style and their workflows and processes. Like they would, in almost all cases, rather work with somebody who's like already in the groove.
Right. Okay. So, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about with you is, and I want to talk about this from a tactical perspective, is that you talk a lot about balancing like freelancing and work with your life and with like home life and the kind of harmony in between. And you also had scaled your business at one point to like a really substantial amount and then kind of pulled it back for the sake of working on that harmony inside your life. You also mentioned already in this episode, like just having a little bit of burnout and like figuring out ways around that. What were some of the unexpected challenges that kind of came with that level of success? How do you think freelancers can tactically take a step back while also, continuing to build their business, provide for themselves? Are there any lessons that you learned that you could share with us?
Oh, it's just so hard. Like, that's my best lesson. I grew my freelance business to a really, a point that I was really proud of, but I have two small children. I have two aging parents. I had two, but now I have one elderly dog. Like I got a lot of people relying on me and my time. And so I think like before I had kids, I grossly underestimated just not even the time and the effort it takes, but like the cognitive labor it takes to manage a family. So that's been like a constant balancing act for me. I'm at this point now working roughly a 3-day work week. Wrenches get thrown in that all the time because somebody's home with an ear infection or, like God knows what else happens. So like I have just kind of accepted and realized like work-life balance or work-life harmony is just it's not a constant. It's not a steady. I have, weeks where my work week gets turned on its head and I'm working late at night because a kid was home during the day or like it just never looks the same. I've had to be really realistic with myself about how much like work I can take on. And tactically, that has meant like really candid conversations with my husband about like how much do I actually need to earn? Like I've been earning at this high level for so many years and that's been great, but like do we need that much? What do we need? What does that look like for me work-wise? Like really crunching the numbers and having the honest conversations about like finances and lifestyle and all of these different things because
Mm,
they're all so closely intertwined. They all depend on each other. And like I think especially when I was earlier, even mid freelance career, like you get a lot of pride out of being like a six-figure freelancer or posting this huge income on the internet every year. And like that's nice, but like it's not always sustainable to like keep out earning yourself
hmm.
necessarily, especially when you have a family and the market's weird. Like it's just so much out of your control. So I just kind of I'm in a season of life right now where like my career is not my top priority and like maybe I'll get to a point where it is again, but right now it has very much just become like a means to an end. It's the way that I'm like financing the other parts of my life that I care more about right now and I that's not a LinkedIn postable answer necessarily
Sure.
because people
Yeah.
don't like to hear that. Like I'm very much here to earn a paycheck, but yeah, it's just a constant roller coaster. That's not
Let's
helpful at all.
No, it is. No, it gives me an idea for another question because, first of all, it is helpful. It really is helpful because none of this is linear, like
Mhm.
none of this is like, oh, you're just up on an upward trajectory the whole time you're in business. And I feel like it's really important to normalize that, first of all. So it is helpful. Also, I know that there are people out there that are having kids and have a family and have to have that conversation. There's also people out there that have to have that really honest conversation that you just talked about that you had with your husband. They have to have that with themselves. Like they
Mhm.
have to say like, what do I want out of this life? Like, do I want to work 24/7 or do I want time to go have brunch with my friends? And
Mhm.
do I want time to walk my dog and
Mhm.
to have a slow morning? I know I had to have like that talk with myself at different times. There were times that, like, after my divorce, that I was like, I have to just be in maintenance mode only. Like,
Mhm.
I'm working on the clients I have, going to make sure that they're really happy. And I'm not searching for any new clients this whole year. And I'm giving myself permission to make so much less money. That had to be fine with me. And I had to have that conversation with myself, you know?
Mhm.
So I think it is really important. I think it's really helpful. I am curious about, like, if you were coaching someone strategically on like going from working 5 days a week, 8 in the morning to 6 at night, like just plowing the pavement, or like working even later than that, or working all night on things, or maybe they have a full-time job and they're also trying to create this side hustle over here. What would be some of the steps you would tell somebody to take in order to really in order to really kind of take the hours that they are working on the clock and organize them or move them into a smaller amount of time? Is
Mhm.
there something that you did that you can like kind of share, or something that you teach or share to other people to help them either time block things or change the way that they work, change the way that they look at the days that they work?
Mhm. Oh man, there's so much like in that question. I think don't do what I did, which is when I first reduced my work week, I was like, oh, I'll just fit 5 days into 4 or 3, which like that doesn't go well. Like a few things that have been helpful for me is I think, first of all, like to just get a little like theoretical, like really analyzing where your desire to work that much is coming from. Is
Coming
it like
from
an ego and an identity thing? Is it actually like you're feeling a lot of financial pressure? If you are feeling financial pressure, is that financial pressure real or is it just perceived? And or do you like the way that your business looks online and want to sustain it? Like I think really digging deep into like, why am I investing so much of my time and energy into work? Like you're doing that because you're getting something from it. So like figuring out what that something is will help you make changes that are more like meaningful to you. I have never been one who's like blocking my calendar. I'm not a time blocker. I don't live by my calendar. It's just never been helpful for me. I know that personally, like I'm very motivated by money. I have 2 kids in childcare. Life is expensive. Like I need money. Nobody likes to say it, but like I wouldn't need be here if I didn't need money. Like
right.
I'm gonna
It's
be
honest.
Yes, I'm going to be doing something way different with my time if I did not need the money. So, one thing that I did that was really helpful is I think setting an income goal is talked about really commonly in entrepreneurship. But when I was at a point where I was like earning a high income and was just so burnt out and knew I needed to change, I set an income cap. And so like once I had achieved, like I knew I had, 8,000 or 10,000, whatever that number is for you, $10,000 worth of work booked for the month, I'm done. I'm not putting anything else into that month. It needs to go to the next month. If they're not okay being bumped to the next month, then I'm not like taking the job. So setting an actual like ceiling, a limit for myself of like, if you take on more than that, that is when you are overextended was helpful for me. And I just have like literally a Google sheet where I'm just like tracking, okay, I got 3 articles from this client at $750 a piece. That puts me at this. And I got 2 from this client at 800 a piece. And like just tracking as they come in. And I'm like, oh, I'm at, okay, I don't need any more. I don't need any more. Why would I take more if this isn't what I want to be like doing? And of course, there's a lot of nuance there. It's not always so black and white. Sometimes an opportunity comes up where you're like, oh, but this is a really good opportunity. And you can kind of make judgment calls on those things as they come up, but like having like a number, just a clear limit in my head, and then just tracking what's actually coming in has been so helpful in keeping me from like overcommitting and overextending.
That is, oh, golden advice. I love that. I love it so much because there is not only are people, maybe there's like an income cap, but sometimes there's like how many calls am I going to want to be on a week
Mm-hmm.
cap, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like, okay, I do a lot of regular coaching one-on-one with clients, and I know when I'm starting to reach my max because I start dreading doing it, and I love doing it. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I dreading this? It's not because of the clients, it's not because of the people that I'm working with. I'm dreading it because I looked at the calendar and it's completely filled. And I know I'm not going to have any time for my little introvert breaks in between my calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be able to have a slow morning, which is like one of my core things that I've learned that I need. And like, so it's again, having that honest discussion with yourself
Mm-hmm.
can really make a difference there.
Yeah, and it's so helpful too, because like I realized for myself, like if I was motivated by money, if I'm just like objectively looking at an opportunity in my inbox, like, well, yeah, it's always better to work more and have more money. So like it wasn't a good kind of compass for me to make decisions by, because it's like, well, an extra $1,000, like, yeah, that's better. I'll take it. And like if that's the only kind of milestone or benchmark you're working toward, that's when you just get overextended because you're trying to earn as much as possible and it's just not sustainable.
I think it's great that you mentioned the theoretical aspect of like, what are you motivated by and
Hmm.
what are you having fear around and where is that coming from? So great tip.
Hmm.
I super love it. Okay, we've talked about how the market is weird right now. You're not supposed to date podcasts, right? But like for context, we're in like April-ish of 2025 right now while we're recording this. That being said, let's kind of like try to wipe that away for a few minutes and kind of be in like normal how we've kind of known the market to be up and down, fluctuating here and there for a while. You talk about how, it is kind of important to have some kind of presence to be top of mind in your marketing or in your outreach. Even when you are fully booked, it is important to some level to be making contact with people, having meaningful conversations, networking in some capacity, whether that's online or like by talking to people. Do you have any tips for any low effort but maybe high impact ways that freelancers can kind of keep their pipeline full, but not feel like they're constantly just selling themselves and marketing all the time?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really easy to overcomplicate. I don't have some like, super refined system. I try to spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn. And I mean, this can literally be like an hour per week. I have a Trello board where I'm just tracking like leads, so to speak. So if I'm researching an article about employee engagement and I find this great stat and it's from this other company that's in a similar space, like I'll add them to a card on my Trello board and say like, oh, here's company XYZ. I'll leave a little note that says I found them when I was researching this article. And then like when I want to do some outreach or some prospecting, I just go into my Trello board and I have this big list of just like companies that I've already found. And then you can go on LinkedIn, click into their, people, find the content manager, the director of marketing, or whoever it is. And then I send a connection request, usually just with a really friendly note. I always personalize the note. It's like my biggest bugaboo. I never send just a generic, I want to join your LinkedIn network. I like
Thank you.
introduce myself, give them a little hint as to why I'm connecting. And then if they accept my request, like I'll usually follow up with another just quick message saying like, thanks so much for connecting here. I really love content and resources on Company XYZ's blog, like looking forward to staying in touch. And then they respond. And now like that was all it took to have like a warm kind of introduction where I can, if I need to slide back into that DM and say like, hey, like I have an opening, just wondering if you ever need any freelance help, like would love to chat. It's like literally it can be that easy. And I don't want to oversimplify it because you're not always getting a response. You're not always getting your invitation accepted. It can be hard to find the right person. Like there are some complexities at play, but I think people hear sales, marketing, business development, pipeline, and they're like, ah! Like what? No, what is that? And it's just connecting with people. Like that is enough to kind of really be quote unquote marketing your business.
Right. It's so true. I mean, and you think about like going to a networking event and you talk to someone there and you have a conversation. You're like, I really like this person. This was really fun. Then maybe you go back home, you have added each other on social media. And then after that, you strike up another conversation or you meet for coffee and then you start doing business together. It's kind of like, it's the same thing in real life. These are all people behind their devices, right? They're all people back there and they don't want to be some piece of your automated, funnel where you copy pasted the same message to 30 people and it shows, know?
Absolutely.
So I love that. Okay. So my last question for you, and something that I always ask my guests, is what is a myth that you would love to bust about the freelance industry?
Ooh, a myth that I would love to bust. Oh man, I feel like we've come a long way in terms of a lot of myths being busted, largely because everybody was sent home during COVID. And I think a lot of the myths that persisted had to do with like working from home and like, is that really work? And then everybody realized like, yes, and it's hard work. Oh, what is a myth that I would like to bust? I think just the general, this is probably more client facing than freelancer facing, but I do think that there is can still be a perception that freelancers are maybe like flighty or they're doing this in between jobs. I think we still have a ways to go in terms of establishing it as a legitimate career, like long-term career and not a stopgap, not a side hustle, not, all of these different things. I think we've come a long way. The freelance economy has grown so much, and I know it's only, predicted to continue growing more, but I do still think there are a lot of like misconceptions out there that like freelancing is just sort of a flighty, someone's just doing it kind of on the side sort of thing, and not like there are so many freelancers who have been doing this for decades as full-time successful careers. So like that's definitely a big one.
I love that answer. I agree. It is a professional career, and it is something that is keeping people in business and keeping people motivated. And the shame around it, or the shame around what other people feel, is largely usually based in a projection of themselves. So, so yes, I completely agree with you. I'm glad you said it. Thank you so much for being here on the Real Personal Branding Podcast. It was so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Yay. I hope you loved this conversation with Kat as much as I did. We just talked about what it takes to build a freelance business that is honestly both profitable and fulfilling. But setting boundaries is not easy, right? So I loved how she talked about it. I love how she talked about diversifying income streams. I like how she talked about finding the balance that actually works for you. What did you think? Tell me about it. I want to know. I want to know what you thought of this episode. Let me know. I am L Davis Creative everywhere. Okay, and as you reflect on today's episode, I would love for you to ask yourself, what is one step that you can take this week to make your business feel a little bit more sustainable, a little bit less like crazy pants, right? How can you build a business that supports a life you actually want instead of trying to fit your entire life around your business? I just think that is something that Kat so eloquently laid out for us, and I want to know how you plan to do this. I want to know what ideas you have. So please feel free to share those with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come be real friends with me on social media. You can find me at L Davis Creative pretty much everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, anywhere you'd like to hang out online, come find me there. And thank you so much for listening to the Real Personal Branding Podcast. I can't wait to talk to you on the next episode.